The girl who saw through glass. The girl's voice cut through the rain like a shard. Don't let him drive, sir. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's rewind to where it began. 30 minutes earlier, when Malcolm Cross thought his biggest problem was a canceled flight. Malcolm Cross stood under the arrival's canopy at LaGuardia, November rain drumming the metal overhead in relentless percussion. 52 years old, CEO of Cross Continental Hotels, $2.4 billion in assets, and he was stranded like any common traveler whose connecting flight had been grounded by weather. His phone was dying, his assistant was unreachable, and the car service he'd booked had simply never appeared. "Terrible night," said a voice beside him, smooth, professional, holding an umbrella that looked expensive. The man wore a black suit, driver's cap, polished shoes that reflected the terminal lights. Mid-40s, clean-shaven, the kind of face that dissolved from memory the moment you looked away. Malcolm Cross. Malcolm turned, surprised. "Yes. Charles Vega, Elite Executive Transport. Your office rebooked through us when your original service canceled. I've been waiting in the lot." He gestured toward a black Mercedes idling at the curb, sleek and anonymous. "Shall we?" Something felt off. Malcolm couldn't pinpoint what. But his phone was at 4%, rain was sheeting sideways, and the Mercedes looked warm and dry. "My office called you directly? Your assistant, Jennifer, about 40 minutes ago, said you needed immediate pickup to Manhattan, preferential routing." Charles smiled apologetically. "I should have been at the curb, but the traffic loop is a nightmare tonight. My fault entirely." Jennifer. His assistant's name was Jennifer. Detail correct. Malcolm felt the tension in his shoulders ease slightly. "The Upper East Side. 5th and 72nd. "Of course, sir. Let's get you out of this weather." Charles opened an umbrella, ushering Malcolm toward the Mercedes. The car was immaculate inside, leather seats, bottled water waiting, temperature perfect. Charles loaded Malcolm's carry-on into the trunk with practiced efficiency, then slid into the driver's seat. The partition was down. Swore softly. "Charger in the console, sir," Charles offered. "Help yourself." Malcolm opened the console. No charger. Just empty space and a map, an actual paper map, folded, with handwritten notes along the margins. He caught fragments. Bridge route, warehouse district, midnight transfer. His mouth went dry. "Where did you say my office found your service?" "Elite Executive Transport. We're new, very exclusive client list." Charles merged onto the bridge approach. "Your assistant was quite specific about discretion and timing." The rain hammered harder. Through it, Malcolm saw another figure. The girl, impossibly, running along the pedestrian walkway of the bridge, soaked and wild-looking, waving her arms. How had she gotten ahead of them? Charles saw her too. His jaw tightened. Persistent little thing. They were level with her now, the girl sprinting alongside on the walkway, separated by a lane of traffic and rain-streaked barriers. She was shouting something, words lost in storm and distance. Her hand slapped against the barriers, pointing at Charles, shaking her head violently. Her mouth formed shapes Malcolm could almost read. "Not real. Not real. Stop, sir," Charles said, voice still smooth but lower now. "I'm going to ask you to put your seatbelt on. For safety." Malcolm's belt was already fastened. Had been since they started. "It's on. Then please relax. We'll be past this construction zone shortly." Construction zone. Malcolm looked ahead. There was no construction. The bridge stretched clear and empty, rain-swept and dark. The girl had stopped running. She stood at the walkway railing, both hands gripping it, chest heaving, staring at the Mercedes with absolute devastation. And Malcolm understood, with a clarity that felt like ice water, that he was in extraordinary danger. "I need to make a call," Malcolm said carefully. "Pull over at the next exit." "No signal on the bridge, sir. We'll be in Manhattan in 10 minutes. Pull over now." Malcolm's hand moved toward the door handle. Charles's voice changed, dropped its professional veneer like a shed skin. "Don't touch that door, Mr. Cross. Child locks are engaged. Just sit quietly, and this will be much simpler." Malcolm's pulse hammered in his ears. "Who are you?" "Someone hired to deliver you somewhere specific. That's all you need to know." The Mercedes accelerated. "Your assistant didn't book me. Your wife did." "Well, technically, a man your wife is very close to, named Richard Torrance. Her divorce attorney, actually. They've been planning this for 6 months." The name hit Malcolm like a fist. "Richard. Rachel's attorney in the separation proceedings she'd initiated last spring. The separation that had stalled, turned bitter, devolved into warfare over assets and control of the company Malcolm had built from a single boutique hotel in Charleston. Rachel wanted 50%. Malcolm had refused. The prenup was ironclad. Apparently, Rachel had found another solution. "Where are you taking me?" "Warehouse in Red Hook. You'll be held 48 hours while certain documents are signed, power of attorney, revised asset transfers, that kind of thing. Then released, unharmed, probably." Charles shrugged. "I don't handle the paperwork. I just drive." Malcolm's mind raced. His phone was dead. The doors were locked. They were on a bridge, no exits, no escape. Behind them, the girl had vanished from view, left behind on the pedestrian walkway. She tried to warn him, and he'd ignored her. And now, glass exploded inward. The rear passenger window shattered in a shower of diamonds, and something heavy crashed through. A piece of concrete, Malcolm realized, wrapped in cloth. Rain poured through the opening. Charles swore, jerking the wheel. The Mercedes swerved violently. What the hell? Another window shattered, driver's side this time. More concrete, more rain. The car fishtailed, tire screaming. And then a third impact, something hitting the windshield, a spider web of cracks blooming across Charles's field of vision. Little bitch. Charles fought the wheel, trying to see through fractured glass and rain. Malcolm grabbed the headrest, bracing himself. Through the shattered rear window, he caught a glimpse of the girl. She'd somehow gotten above them, onto the bridge's maintenance catwalk, and she was throwing chunks of broken concrete with desperate accuracy, targeting the car like a siege weapon. Charles slammed the brakes. The Mercedes skidded sideways, hydroplaning, then jolted to a stop diagonally across two lanes. Horns blared. Traffic swerved around them. "Stay in the car." Charles snarled at Malcolm, then kicked open his door and lunged out into the rain. Malcolm didn't hesitate. He threw himself into the front seat, scrambled across the center console, and dove through the driver's door Charles had left open. He hit the wet pavement hard, rolled, came up running. Behind him, Charles was shouting. At him or the girl, Malcolm couldn't tell. The girl dropped from the catwalk 20 feet away, landing with cat-like grace despite the height. She grabbed Malcolm's arm. "This way. Run." They ran. Behind them, Charles was back at the Mercedes, and Malcolm heard the engine roar to life. The car lurched forward in pursuit, damaged but mobile. The girl pulled Malcolm toward the pedestrian walkway, toward a maintenance access gate she'd somehow pried open. They squeezed through, onto metal stairs leading down into darkness and rain. "Who are you?" Malcolm gasped. "Avery," the girl said, hauling him downward. "Keep moving." "How did you know?" "Later." "Move." The stairs descended into the bridge's infrastructure, a maze of support beams and maintenance platforms, all slick with rain and rust. Above them, Charles had abandoned the Mercedes, was following on foot, his professional demeanor completely gone. "You're making this harder. Mr. Cross, just come out." Avery navigated the darkness like she'd memorized it, pulling Malcolm through tight spaces, around corners, always descending. Her garbage bag of belongings was gone, lost somewhere in the chaos. Her thin jacket steamed in the cold air. "Why are you helping me?" Malcolm whispered. "Because I know what it's like when nobody helps you," Avery said simply. "And because I saw him yesterday, at a diner near the airport, meeting with a woman and another man. Planning this. Talking about you like you were cargo. You heard them planning to kidnap me? I hear lots of things. People don't notice kids like me. We're invisible." She stopped at a junction, listening. Charles's footsteps echoed above, searching. "I didn't know who you were until I saw you getting in his car tonight. Then I recognized your face from his phone. Photos he'd shown the others. I tried to warn you on the street, but you drove away. So you chased us onto the bridge. I climbed the maintenance ladder. Faster than running." Avery's voice was matter of fact. "Had some concrete chunks up there from old repairs. Figured broken windows might make him stop." Malcolm stared at this soaked, shivering child who'd just saved his life with improvised siege tactics. "You're remarkably resourceful. You learned to be." Avery tugged him forward again. "There's an exit ahead. Leads to street level in Queens. We get there, we flag down real cops. You tell them everything." They moved through darkness, rain dripping through grates above. Malcolm's expensive suit was ruined, his carry-on lost, His entire understanding of his safety shattered. But he was alive. Because a homeless girl had been paying attention when everyone else looked away. "Avery," he said. "Thank you. Thank me when we're safe," she replied. "He's still up there, and he's not going to just let you walk away." The exit was a service hatch that opened onto a side street in Long Island City. Industrial buildings, closed warehouses, sparse streetlights cutting yellow circles in the rain. Avery pushed it open, checked both directions, then pulled Malcolm through. They were blocks from the bridge now, but Charles would be down soon. "Police station," Malcolm said. "Where's the nearest?" "There." Avery pointed to a precinct house 4 blocks away, light spilling from its windows. "But we need to be fast. If he catches us before." A car engine growled to life somewhere behind them. The damaged Mercedes, somehow still operational, turning onto their street. Charles had gotten back to it, was hunting them block by block. They ran again, through rain and darkness, past empty loading docks and shuttered businesses. Malcolm's lungs burned. His dress shoes were never meant for this. But Avery was tireless, pulling him forward, her hand surprisingly strong for someone so small. The precinct house grew closer. 50 yards. 30. Malcolm could see officers moving inside, see the American flag hanging wet and heavy in the rain. They were going to make it. The Mercedes rounded the corner ahead of them, cutting them off, blocking the precinct entrance. Charles got out slowly, no longer pretending civility. He held something in his hand, small, dark. Not a gun. A phone. "Mr. Cross," he called over the rain. "Last chance. Get in the car willingly, and nobody gets hurt. Force me to drag you, and things get very messy for both of you." "There are cops right there," Malcolm said, pointing at the precinct house 20 yards away. "And I'm your hired driver, concerned about your safety, trying to get you home." Charles smiled without warmth. Who do you think they'll believe? The billionaire and the street kid making wild accusations? Or the professional driver with proper licensing and a client who clearly had too much to drink on his flight? Avery stepped forward, putting herself between Malcolm and Charles. "He's lying. He's kidnapping Mr. Cross. His name isn't Charles Vega. It is, actually. Legally changed 3 years ago. Very official." Charles moved closer. "Little girl, this isn't your business. Walk away now, and I forget I saw you. Keep interfering, and you become part of the problem." "Touch her," Malcolm said quietly, "and I'll make it my personal mission to bury you." "With what?" "Your dead phone and no proof." Charles took another step. "The Mercedes was hired legitimately through a real service. I made sure of that. My documentation is perfect. The police aren't going to." Avery's hand came out of her pocket holding her own phone. Old, cracked, but recording. She turned the screen toward Charles. "Been filming since the bridge. Got you admitting the kidnapping. Got the threats. Got all of it." Charles's face changed. The professional mask shattered completely, replaced by something feral. He lunged. Malcolm grabbed Avery, pulling her toward the precinct house, and screamed at the top of his lungs, "Help. Police. He's trying to kidnap us." Doors burst open. Officers poured out. 3 of them, hands moving toward their weapons. Charles froze mid-stride, calculations flashing across his face. Then he turned and ran, sprinting back toward the Mercedes. "That man," Malcolm shouted, pointing. "He tried to kidnap me. The girl has video evidence." The officers moved with practiced efficiency, one pursuing Charles, 2 others securing Malcolm and Avery, bringing them inside. Within minutes, Charles was in custody, dragged from the Mercedes before he could drive away, face down on wet pavement with handcuffs biting his wrists. Inside the precinct, wrapped in emergency blankets, Malcolm told the story. Avery provided her phone, the video damning and clear. The officers made calls to Malcolm's actual assistant Jennifer, to elite executive transport, who'd never heard of Charles Vega, to detective units that specialized in kidnapping and extortion. A detective named Torres took their statements, her face growing grimmer as the picture emerged. "Your wife's attorney Richard Torrance. He's been on our radar for other issues. Financial fraud, witness tampering. We've never been able to make anything stick. But this." She looked at the video again. "This might be what finally brings him down." "And my wife?" Malcolm asked quietly. "We'll investigate her involvement thoroughly. If she hired this, she'll be charged accordingly." Torres turned to Avery. "You did something incredibly brave tonight. and incredibly reckless. That bridge stunt could have killed you. Avery shrugged, water still dripping from her hair. Could have let him kill Mr. Cross instead. That seemed worse. 3 months later, Malcolm stood in a courthouse in Lower Manhattan as a judge declared the adoption finalized. Avery Chin Cross, legally, officially, permanently his daughter. She wore new clothes, but the same watchful expression, standing straighter now that hunger and cold weren't constant companions. Rachel had been arrested 2 weeks after the bridge incident, charged as an accomplice to attempted kidnapping. Richard Torrance faced additional charges: conspiracy, fraud, witness tampering. Charles Vega had taken a plea deal in exchange for testimony. The case was solid. "How do you feel?" Malcolm asked Avery as they left the courthouse, stepping into spring sunshine that felt impossible after November's rain. "Weird," Avery admitted. "Good weird. Like I'm waiting for someone to say it's a mistake." "It's not a mistake. You're stuck with me now." Malcolm paused on the steps. "And I'm stuck with you. Which means I should probably tell you that I'm starting a foundation. For homeless youth. Emergency housing, education support, job training. I want you to help me run it when you're older." "Why?" "Because you understand something I never did. How to see people everyone else ignores. How to help when it's dangerous. How to be brave when you have every reason not to be." Malcolm looked at his daughter, this remarkable person who'd saved his life and changed it. "I think that's exactly the kind of person who should decide how to help others." Avery smiled. Genuinely, the weariness finally cracking. "Okay, but I'm picking the name. And the logo. And we're putting charging stations in every location because dead phones are dangerous. Deal." They walked together down the courthouse steps into the spring afternoon. Father and daughter, 2 people who'd found each other in rain and darkness and decided to build something better together. Behind them, justice ground forward slowly but inexorably. Ahead, a foundation was waiting to be built, to help children who watched from shadows and waited for someone to finally see them. Avery looked back once at the courthouse, then forward at the street stretching bright with possibility. "Hey, Dad." "Yeah." "Next time someone offers you a ride, maybe check their credentials first." Malcolm laughed, genuinely, fully, for the first time in years. "Next time, I'm bringing you along to vet them." "Good plan," Avery said. And they headed home together, to the Upper East Side apartment that was no longer empty, to a life that was no longer lonely, to the future they'd both earned through courage and kindness and the radical choice to help when help was needed most. Sometimes survival meant watching carefully. Sometimes it meant throwing concrete at moving cars. Sometimes it meant believing that the world could be better than it was, and then proving it true.